Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll get started in just a minute. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, everyone. We'll get started in just one more minute. We're going to let a few more folks trickle in. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. We are discussing today the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan's future land use section update. So basically, we want to know, how should we grow in unincorporated Hillsborough County? Please note this is not for the city of Tampa. This is specifically for unincorporated Hillsborough County. We're glad to have you with us tonight. Before we get started, I do just want to make everyone aware that this meeting is being recorded. Also, please feel free to use the chat feature for your questions or comments. And you can use the raise hand button to ask questions as well when we get to our question and answer session. Please keep your mic and your camera off, and all of the recordings and the slides will be shared after the meeting. If you do have any technical issues during this, you can, of course, add it to the chat, or you can email tapandrewa@plancom.org. So a little bit about what we'll talk about today. I'll introduce myself, and then we're gonna look at our project overview. Next, we're gonna see a few updates to the future land use section, and then we're gonna dive into our urban service area, learn about the urban service area, look at what we've heard so far, and talk about how we can think strategically. Then we'll discuss our next steps and how you can stay involved. And at the very end, we'll have an open question and answer session with all of our folks here on the call. Throughout this presentation, we will be using a poll. So we would love for you to participate in that. You can either scan the QR code on your screen now, or you can go to menti.com, that's MENTI.com, and enter code 151831. And when you enter that code 151831, did I do the whole thing? (1518315). I apologize. And Andrea, if you don't mind typing that into the chat as well, that would be great. So once you enter that code for menti.com, you should have this question pop up on your screen. What part of the county are you from? And you can enter in your answer into that poll. So I'll give everyone just a moment. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Just north of New Tampa, town and country. Excellent. Just one more minute, making sure everyone is able to access the poll. And if you're having any issues with that poll, you can always, of course, just type it into the chat. The code again is 1518315. Is that right, Andrea? I think I said that right this time. 1518315.
Amy, that code is not working for me.
It's not working for you?
No, 1518315.
Let's try
Did someone else try it?
77279348. So try 77279348 if that code is not working for you. Got a few folks it's working for. The QR code is working. And
That second one worked, the 7727.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Again, if you're having any issues with that polling, please feel free to type your answers of the poll into the chat. I see Regina from the Keystone area. Excellent. Welcome and thank you so much. All right, we've got a few more folks joining us. And don't worry, if you've missed this poll, there will be more throughout the presentation. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So my name is Amy Elmore. I am a consultant with EXP Planning, and I am working with our Plan Hillsborough team on this future land use update. I am a local of Tampa Bay. I've been here for over 10 years, and I am very proud to call it home. I love this area. I live in this area, and I'm honored to be a part of this project. So why are we doing this update? I think, everyone on this call has probably heard about this update a little bit. And essentially, this is to create great places. This is for our comprehensive plan. That's what we've branded this as, is creating great places. We've done many updates up until now. We've done our natural open space section. We've done our One Water section. We've updated our governance section, except for the public schools portion. And we've updated our community and built environment section, the mobility and housing portions. So this future land use section is really that last major piece of the puzzle. So what is future land use? Our future land use guides purpose and character of growth, separates land into general categories, and sets maximum density and range of uses. Now, this is a little bit different than zoning that regulates building size, setbacks, specific uses, and zoning is used to approve or deny developments and uses. It also defines specific districts within general categories. The Hillsborough County Planning Commission is responsible for the future land use, whereas the Hillsborough County Planning Department is responsible for zoning. So together, the Planning Commission and the Planning Department work together to maintain health, safety, and welfare by separating those incompatible land uses. The comprehensive plan and the future land use section within that comprehensive plan work hand in hand with many different plans throughout the area, including our long range transportation plan, organized by the Hillsborough Transportation Planning Organization, our transit development plan, organized by HART, and the land development code, organized by Hillsborough County Planning Department, along with many other local and regional plans. Right now, we are at the very beginning of this process. We're doing our workshops and really wanting to engage our communities. Throughout the fall and the winter, we'll be finalizing some of the recommendations based on the feedback that we've heard from our community, and we'll continue to have public engagement and stakeholder coordination throughout the entire process. In 2024, so sometime early next year, we'll be taking this to the Planning Commission. They will make a recommendation to the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners, and the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners will make the final adoption after several different hearings and public meetings. Again, all of this will have lots of public engagement and stakeholder coordination until the end of this process. So when we're thinking about our future land use section, there are a few different elements that we really want to focus on to ensure that we're thinking and updating those elements in tandem with the future land use section. For example, our agricultural policies updates, we have several of those, though no major changes are being proposed. We've worked with our Agricultural Development Council to look at our three objectives that are currently in our future land use section and make minor revisions to those policies that reflect our current programs. In addition, we understand that utilities is extremely important for us to is also extremely important for us to consider throughout the future land use section updates. So this utility extension policy update that we're recommending is intended to prevent and address potential environmental impacts, especially septic tank clustering, and allows utilities to be extended if there's very specific criteria or if there's possible environmental hazards on that site. Something else we want to make sure that we work on in tandem with our future land use, and it's very that we know is extremely important to keep in mind throughout this process, are our current community plans. We currently have 22 adopted community plans in our livable communities element of our future land use section, and these cover suburban, urban, and many rural areas. For example, Sasa expresses a preference for 1 acre lot minimums. So these adopted community plans lay out those provisions to help maintain rural development patterns. And we work closely with the community to evaluate potential conflicts depending on the geography. Here's a list of our 22 current community plans. I saw a few of you were from Keystone, some different areas. And essentially, if we take a deeper dive into our community plans, over here on the right, you can see the map of community plans. It's a lot of different community plans with a lot of different acreage, which is wonderful. You know, essentially, these community plans are an extension of the comprehensive plan. So they discuss special and unique characteristics of our communities. They examine issues and problems facing the community, and they portray a vision for the future of the community. We also know that some of these plans have related zoning or land development code regulations to keep in mind. And these are completely extensive citizen participation driven plans. So these are publicly initiated plans that really set the tone and the vision for our communities. All right, we've got another poll for you. If you did have that page open, you can keep it open. It's the same page, but you'll just go to the next poll. If you don't have that poll open, you can still go to menti.com and enter that code, or you can click the QR code. And there we go. What aspects of your community are most important to preserve? And again, if you're having any issues with that poll, please feel free to type your answers into the chat. What aspects of your community are most important to preserve? The code is 7727938. Open space, excellent. You can try this code 77279348. The code at the top of your screen right now, if the previous one did not work. Seven seven two seven 9348, or use that QR code. All right, green areas, character, safety, open space, perfect. Watersheds and trees, excellent. We'll give everyone just a few more minutes here. Thank you, Melissa, for adding that correct code to the chat. All right, perfect. Just one more minute. Again, if you're having any issues with that poll, feel free to add your answers to the chat and we'll make sure to include them. Keeping rural characteristics excellent. Maintaining green space in the watershed areas, perfect. More open space. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. So let's dive into our urban service area. Now, this is a term that's thrown around a lot during our conversations. And essentially, the urban service area is part of the adopted future land use elements growth management strategy. It pinpoints where current growth is focused. It identifies urban, suburban development, and rural areas, and it helps to create compatible development patterns that efficiently utilize our land and county services. So one thing that I love about Hillsborough County is that whether you want to live in an urban area, a suburban area, or a rural area, it's that urban service area map that allows us to have those choices. So you can see here on the right, this particular map in red is the urban service area, and the rest of the entire box is unincorporated Hillsborough County. But we know that our land that is vacant, developable, or redevelopable within the urban service area is diminishing. Currently, we only have about 20% of that land left. Here's a closer look at this map. So you can see again that red is the urban service area. Now, note that this does not include our cities like Tampa, Temple Terrace, and Plant City. This is just specifically talking about unincorporated Hillsborough County. So as far as our developable lands go within the urban service area, currently we only have about 17,900 acres within the urban service area. And you can see this on the map to the right in the purple squares. You can also see that many of these purple squares are very, very small. So the lot sizes are very tiny. We do have some areas that are that are a little bit larger for developable land, but most of our lot sizes are very small. In total, between the urban service area and Plant City, Tampa, and Temple Terrace, we have 28,663 acres of developable land. When we're talking about redevelopable land, you can see this map here over on the right-hand side again. This time, the redevelopable land is in that yellow peach color on your screen. Again, mostly very small lot sizes, some areas that are a little bit larger. In the urban service area, we only have about 15,000, a little over 15,000 total acres that are redevelopable. In total, between the urban service area and all of the cities, we have a little over 22,000 acres that are redevelopable. So for developable and redevelopable land within the urban service area, we only have about 33,282 acres of land. That's 65% within the urban service area of the total acres. In total, including our cities, we have a little bit over 51,000 total acres that are developable or redevelopable. So here's what that looks like on that map. We've got the developable land in purple and the redevelopable land in peach. Now, please note that this does exclude wetlands, environmental areas, places that we know we need to preserve. So, these are the totals without those included. All right, we're going to have one more poll here. And your code for this one is 77279348. That's 77279348. And again, if you have any issues, feel free to put those answers into the chat. What are the most pressing challenges to growth that need to be addressed? What are the most pressing challenges to growth that need to be addressed? Oh. All right, infrastructure, perfect. Preservation, connectivity, schools, excellent, excellent. Traffic, thank you. I see those in the chat as well. Connectivity. Excellent, I'll give everyone just a few more minutes here, or a few more seconds. Overdeveloped areas causing infrastructure issues, excellent. Perfect. All right, and feel free to continue to add those or add them into the chat, whichever is easiest for you. Again, we will have an open Q&A at the very end. Oh, we've got a few more that have popped up. Overcrowding, density, air pollution, political environment, schools, preservation, environment, traffic. Excellent, thank you so much. All right. So we have done a lot of community outreach so far within this process, including a survey where we got some wonderful feedback. We got over 18,000 survey participants with 32,000 data points collected. So we had some wonderful data to pull from and start to see some trends. We know that according to this survey, the priority for our participants was really first to preserve natural areas. That was 20% ranked this as their number one priority. Then to maintain infrastructure and development. The next one was to maintain agricultural and rural lands. And then last of the top four priorities was our variety of mobility choices. Then we looked at inward growth and outward growth. Inward growth growing into the urban service area boundary, outward growth growing outside the urban service area boundary. So when we're looking at our inward growth, we found that our participants felt that maximizing existing infrastructure was the most important strategy when considering that inward growth. And a variety of housing types was ranked as the least important of these options. However, we know that about 25% ranked variety of housing types as their number one. So we know that this is still a very important strategy to consider when we're looking at inward growth. You can see this a little bit closer. Again, that inward growth, maximizing existing infrastructure. We see that as one of the most important things people feel. Then safe walking and biking. Next, being close to daily needs. And last, but certainly not least, a variety of housing types. Then when we're looking at outward growth, how important are these strategies for outward growth outside the urban service area? Most people felt that minimizing impacts to the environment was most important, whereas access to major highways was the least important strategy. When talking about the strategies here, we saw again, minimizing impacts to the environment was absolutely number one. Having infrastructure already in place was number two. Preservation of rural areas, number three. And compatible land uses is right up there in the four. So with that urban service area, we know that we need to think strategically. There are two types of growth, as I just mentioned. We have the inward growth and the outward growth. Inside the urban service area, we know based on our community feedback that we want to maximize existing infrastructure. We want to have safe walking and biking. We want to make sure that we're close to daily needs and that we offer a variety of housing types. Now, up until now, most of the strategies that we've talked about, especially in our community meetings in May and early June, involved our inward growth techniques, such as our transit-oriented development incentives, our new Centers and Connections program, and our commercial locational criteria. So today, we're talking about that outward growth. We know that with the outward growth, based on your feedback, we want to minimize impacts to the environment. We want to have an infrastructure in place. We want to have preservation of rural areas, and we want to ensure compatible land uses. So some of the outward growth strategies that we've considered are updating transfer of development rights, which we currently have, but we could update those. We could add new strategic expansion policies. We could have updates to rural policies and utility connections, which we previously mentioned a few slides back, and maintaining our agricultural policies to preserve those rural lands. Right now, the urban service area has not been expanded through a publicly initiated plan amendment. Currently, any amendment that's happened has been applicant-driven expansion. So this is usually reactive to a request that we're getting, not proactive where we're strategically thinking it out. So we found that there is a need for proactive, strategic future expansion criteria instead of reactive. Now, I do want to mention that something we're not talking about today is identifying the specific areas, because we know that that's a much larger conversation. where things that might happen, where growth might happen, we need to do more research on that. We need to do more community outreach, and that's a much larger process. So what we are talking about right now is, when do we plan for the growth? How do we plan? And what do we plan for? So the first thing that we did is we reviewed some study examples. Where has this worked in the past? And one main example that came up was our Plant City Northeast Master Plan. Now, this provides a really nice framework for our future land uses to create a cohesive community, provide adequate public services, and enhance mobility and connectivity within the study area and throughout the area in general. We have worked with the school board to identify capacity needs, and we're ensuring coordination between land use vision and our transportation plan. So here's another look at what we're talking about today. When? When is it time to consider expansion? How? How should we plan for that expansion? And what should we look at in expansion areas? So when we're looking at the when we should plan for expansion, we're essentially going to evaluate the timing through the Planning Commission's population projections. When will we not have enough developable or redevelopable land? When will we be at capacity for public service and daily needs? When will we be at capacity for housing? When will we be at capacity for jobs? And we'll evaluate that data every 7 years with an evaluation and appraisal report. How? Well, we want to develop a master plan that will guide the physical development of the expansion area through multiple project phases, addressing land use transitions to the rural area and mixed uses. We also want to ensure consistency with the comprehensive plan's goals, objectives, and policies. We want to ensure that we consider community plans and we address any kind of conflicts. We want to coordinate with our external partners like our school districts and HART. And we want to make sure that these expansions provide a positive economic impact to the county. In addition, we want to ensure that impact and mobility fees are reviewed and aligned to infrastructure and land use development strategies. We want to make sure that our traffic circulation, our road connectivity, water, sewer, solid waste, drainage, parks and recs that are necessary to serve this area are included in that master plan. In addition, we want to make sure that they're not just included, but that funding programs are demonstrated to be viable. So we're not just thinking about these wonderful concepts, we're ensuring that they're implementable and that they can be funded and truly put into place. We also are encouraging private infrastructure investment and developing and reviewing corridor plans that address proposed expansion areas. Now, what? What should we consider when we're looking at expansion? We want to make sure that any of these areas are adjacent to the urban service area itself. We don't want something way outside the urban service area. We want it to be right next to it. We want it to contain a minimum of 50 acres. We want it to have sufficient access and adequacy to infrastructure that has capacity and can be extended. We want to optimize efficiency of public service delivery. We want to make sure that we preserve natural resources, wildlife corridors, rural development, and land in our flood zones. And we want to enhance our community plan and vision. So if a community plan wants a particular growth or a particular goal, this would help them to achieve that. Next, we want to make sure that any of these areas are a half-mile proximity and accessible to employment, commercial, cultural, or community centers, or they have adequate land to create those centers. We also want to encourage economic growth and employment opportunities. We want to make sure that it increases access to daily goods and services with the intention of providing more opportunity, especially to those within under-resourced communities. And we want to make sure that these expansion areas enhance safety and access to public services like our schools, our libraries, our parks. With that, we've got a few more polls for you. And it looks like we're going to use that same number. What signs should we look for to determine when to expand our growth outward? Oh, we've already got one planning wildlife corridors within the development plans. Excellent, excellent. Yes, that code that you can use is 77279348. Or you can just type it into the chat. Excellent. Building permits and traffic. Current area to have adequate infrastructure before adding more. Excellent. I'll give everyone just a few more seconds here. Take your time. The homes available in current areas, roads over capacity. Excellent. Connectivity to utilities. Absolutely. Excellent. Just a few more seconds. Infrastructure improvements before residential and commercial development. Grid type network near depletion of available. Excellent. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, and keep those windows open. We've got another one coming at you. Tell us, what are some types of development that should be considered to accommodate new growth in strategic expansion areas? What are some types of development that should be considered to accommodate new growth in strategic expansion areas? Do you want grocery stores? Do you want residential? Do you want office space? Do you want open space? What types of development should be considered to accommodate new growth in strategic expansion areas? And that same code, 77279348. All right, there we go. We've got a couple coming in. Tiny homes, co-housing, cluster housing, wildlife corridors. I love it. Mixed use planned in new areas. Love that mixed use for sure. I definitely, my millennial self is very excited about the mixed use. Compatible with existing zoning. Perfect. Yes. Excellent. Give everyone just a few more seconds here. Natural areas and corridors for wildlife. Priority, absolutely. Love that. All right. Again, if you're having any issues with that code, feel free to type in to the chat your answer. All right, and last full question before we are about to close out for our presentation. What are some other considerations that are important as our county continues to grow? Now, many of these may be things that we've seen in some of our other poll questions, and that's perfectly fine. Feel free to repeat yourself. If it's important to you, it's important to us. So that code again, 77279348. What are other considerations that are important as our county continues growing? Set balance between residential commercial development alongside the conservation areas. Love that. Infrastructure first. Excellent. And if you're wanting to type a long answer, you may want to type those into the chat. Affordable housing for senior citizens. Excellent. All right, good roads. Considering our flood zones and climate change. Excellent. Infrastructure improvements, green areas, air quality. Excellent. Corridors. Farmers markets. Oh, I love that. Areas for wildlife. Excellent. Give everyone just another minute here. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. So quickly, before we get into our open Q&A, I do want to let you know about some of our next steps and how you can continue to stay involved. So we are here today with our virtual meeting. Then in August, we will have a project advisory team meeting. It is open to the public, but it will discuss the same topics provided today. And then November 2nd and November 6th, we'll have another meeting with another public meeting, one in person, one virtual, so that we can talk a little bit more about some of our recommendations, what we've heard so far, and how we're incorporating those into our updates. Throughout the process, we'll also be posting updates regularly by email and on our website and through our social media, so definitely stay tuned. One more look at kind of where we're at. So again, we're right here with these public workshops. In the fall and winter, we'll be doing some finalizing our recommendations. And then early next year, we'll be going to our Planning Commission where they will make a recommendation to the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners will have two public hearings, a transmittal and an adoption hearing, and then they will make the final approval for the future land use updates. Throughout this entire process, we're going to be having a lot of public engagement and stakeholder coordination, just like these meetings right now. And at any time, you can contact us on our website, shoot us an email, give us a call, or go to the website or social media, and we'd love to connect with you more. And with that, I would love to open it up for questions. If you will, please, I ask that you be respectful and that you allow everyone to have a turn. You may turn on your cameras if you would like to, but you certainly don't have to. And then if you will, if you have a question, please raise your hand. Use the raise hand feature or add your question into the chat. I don't see any hands raised. Again, feel free to add your question into the chat feature. I know I've seen a few of you at some of our meetings. Thank you so much for being here virtually tonight. Excellent. Is it Sabine?
Sabina, that's how you say it.
Sabina.
It's all right.
No.
So you've talked about how this land use plan is going to be compatible with the local community plans, and I just wanted to be clear on what happens when if everything is adopted for this future land use plan, and then how will it be implemented? Are there the Board of Commissioners or the County Commissioners going to look at development proposals? Is it the local community with their local plans, or how will it actually work on the ground?
So ultimately, the process is final. The final adoption for any of these, anything that gets implemented, is through the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. So if we have a land use amendment, we can look at the community plan first, make sure that it coincides with that community plan. Then we'll take a look at some of our land use regulations, make sure that that it coincides with those as well. And we make a recommendation to the Planning Commission. That Planning Commission then makes a recommendation to the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. And then the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners makes that final adoption of whatever amendment or any action that there might be. Andrea or Melissa, would you like to expand on that?
How often does the Board of County Commissioners agree with the judgment of the Planning Commission?
That's a great question, and that's actually something that we do track as part of our annual reporting. Each jurisdictions, because the Planning Commission, we are charged with long-term planning for all 4 jurisdictions in Hillsborough County. So the cities of Temple Terrace and Plant City, the city of Tampa, as well as unincorporated Hillsborough County, the liaisons for each jurisdiction, we track that. We see where we make a recommendation, what the recommendation is, and then did the Board of County Commissioners or City Council or the City Commissions, I believe the small cities are called, whether they agree with staff or not. So that's all compiled annually in our annual report. I don't have a number for you off the top of my head, but if you tune into any of the public meetings, you can see how that plays out live. Sometimes, for the land use meetings, for rezoning, the Board of County Commissioners, and I'm talking about unincorporated Hillsborough County specifically in this instance, they'll agree sometimes or not agree other times, or there'll be a robust discussion before they make their decision. There's really no way to predict that at this stage. But like Amy said, staff does make a professional recommendation of whether we think something is consistent or inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. And with this, the future land use update, we would be working on this with all of the outreach and all of the internal work that we've done, and then working with the external agencies. We would be bringing our recommendation to them based on all of the information that we've received.
I would just also add to that that there are public hearings for any of the rezoning development proposals that come through. So public is able to come and speak to any cases. And we have those at least once a month.
Does that answer your question? Oh, I think
Yes, thank you.
excellent. Allison also has a question in the chat. What is the thought process around the 50-acre minimum expansion of the urban service area? Is that a minimum per parcel, or is the requirement that a group of parcels at least 50 acres in size are added to the urban service area at the same time? It's a great question. Andrea, do you have any thoughts about that one?
I can take a stab at this one. So the 50 acres is by project or development. It doesn't mean that one parcel needs to be 50 acres minimum to apply for the extension. The 50 acres was based on the research that we did with all the jurisdictions that were listed with the previous one of the previous slides. Basically looking at what other jurisdictions used as their baseline, and also knowing that we wanted to have some sort of minimum so you don't have, you know, a 10-acre project or something that maybe is smaller and not as meaningful and isn't able to capture all of those qualities that we had listed, you know, like trying to make sure that we preserve the wetlands and protecting natural habitat, having a mix of uses, making sure we have an efficient transportation system. All of those things require space. So that is the number that we have right now. It may not be the final number that we end up with when this ends up going to the Planning Commission and the board with the final draft. We will be bringing this idea to the Planning Commission and the board later this summer, and then back again in the early fall to gather their thoughts. You know, the 50 acres might not be something that they would support. They may want to see something bigger. So we'll get that feedback from them. But if you have a suggestion, you know, we'd love to hear from you, or if you want to throw it in the chat.
Excellent. Oh, no worries, Allison. Yeah, feel free to throw something in the chat. Happy to read it. Does anyone else have a question? Feel free to raise your hand.
Amy, there's a question in the chat from Kelly.
Oh, I can't see that, unfortunately. Oh, here I see.
Do you see it? Okay.
Has there been an analysis of the unincorporated vacant land regarding size of parcels and contiguous parcels? Hillsborough County has historically been known for larger master planned communities. That's a great question. Melissa or Andrea? Are you familiar with that?
Kelly, we did show a couple maps earlier in the presentation about lands that could potentially be developed or redeveloped. So we'll be drilling down in this process a little bit more as we move toward. Right now, we're really in the kind of preliminary feedback stage, but yes, we will be studying where these possible connections could be based on the criteria that we're bringing to the outreach meetings, as well as the Planning Commission and the board.
Excellent. I've got another question here. Do you consider hurricane evacuation and the need for shelters in your planning of expanding boundaries? And I think, yes, that's definitely something that we're considering, especially when we're looking at our partners, making sure that our emergency management is part of this process as well. That also goes for our hospitals and our fire stations. So all of that, those different components, as far as our public services, especially within that emergency management realm, are absolutely being considered throughout this planning process. Great question. Great question.
And the other thing I would add too, if that is a great question, is that during this process for the outreach, like, so not only for the future land use outreach that we're doing right now, but also for the eventual plan amendment that will go through the formal process, we will be reaching back out to those external agencies. So Hillsborough County, like Amy said, you know, Office of Emergency Management, Hazard Mitigation, they will all be given copies of all these policy directions. And then we've also had, like I said, some more focused internal and external meetings with various staff with Hillsborough County and the other agencies to get ahead of questions like this, because they're really our technical experts. The comprehensive plan covers almost every topic that is involved with land use. So we rely on those technical experts to drill down to the details and tell us, okay, this is meeting technical standards, or this is not meeting technical standards, those types of things. So yes, we're in constant communication with those various agencies.
Excellent. Thank you, Melissa. Are there any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for spending the time with us. I know it's dinner time. Very quickly, I do just want to open it up for discussion. I'd like to show this slide one more time. This what slide. So this is how we are, what we're thinking about when we're considering those expansion areas. And I think most of the questions that you've asked so far have been related to those. I wanted to throw this back up on our screen and just see, is there anything that we're missing? Feel free to type it into the chat, raise your hand. Is there anything that we're missing here? Anything else that we should be considering? And here's our first slide. Here's our second slide. And I know we're putting you on the spot here. So if you look at this later and say, hey, we realize that you're missing this, definitely feel free to email us or contact us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. This will be available online, as we mentioned before. An additional state park. I love it. I love the idea. Love it, love it. Parks and rec, absolutely. Allison says the apartment association leader at one of our prior meetings discussed a minimum of 20 or so acres for multi-use development. We might want to consider their minimum as opposed to the 50-acre minimum. That's great information. Thank you. Climate change affecting the weather and the housing. Need to consider that. Excellent point. Excellent. Let me just go back one more.
And just Amy, if you don't mind, just to respond to
course.
Allison, that's a very good point that she made in the chat about the 20 acres and what the feedback that we received from the multifamily developer that had spoken at one of the previous meetings. I think what we're trying to accomplish here, though, is more angled toward a variety of uses, so not just a single development. So I think what his point was is that's what he needed as a minimum for an apartment development, but that if we're talking about having, you know, multifamily uses or single family uses or duplexes or any of the missing middle housing, we would want to have some other uses in the area. So you could have trip capture. Someone could, you know, go grab their groceries some nearby, or go grab a, gallon of milk, or fill up their gas tank, those types of things. So we were thinking from this perspective that it would be more of a multi-use project and less one-dimensional. So I think that's why we wanted to also have a bigger number in there, so we had enough room to accommodate a variety of uses.
That's a really great point, Melissa. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that also lends itself to the idea of, you know, increasing that access to opportunity, making sure people have the resources that they need to have the chance to succeed, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier in the presentation about just Hillsborough County in general provides so many choices for people. You know, you could be a farmer, you could live, you know, in a high-rise apartment downtown in Tampa. You know, you could have live in a suburban development in between. You really have a lot of options in Hillsborough County, which was one of the best things about it. So we were just trying to translate that into any kind of new development. We want to make sure that everyone has that kind of choice on where they want to live and how they want to live.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Great idea, Allison. I think definitely looking at all of those aspects as we continue on. Anything else that, oh, go ahead, please.
Just jump in real quick. I really appreciate the comment or the question in the chat about getting an additional state park. Personally love state parks. That would be wonderful. But just wanted to set the expectations appropriately. So that is a little outside what we have control over in the comprehensive plan. The state parks is run by the Florida State Park System. But certainly I think that's a great point that maybe we can have something that's more specific about recreation opportunities. There's also a recreation and open space section within the comprehensive plan. That's a separate section from our future land use section, but that's another place where the planning for parks takes place. And we would want to make sure that any approach to this is also consistent with the recreation and open space section. But I think the idea of, incorporating recreation, incorporating parks into this might be something that we can look at as another option. So really appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Melissa, for that great feedback. Especially on this slide here, we look at enhancing safety and access to our public services. That includes our parks, but maybe we develop that out to be more consistent with our other elements of the comprehensive plan, where we can say, we really want to encourage open space and parks and that sort of thing. So love those ideas. So we've got a couple of questions here. Where can we get a copy of the current comprehensive plan? You can get that at, yep,
Just put it in
Andrea
the
sent it
chat.
in the chat.
Yeah.
So there's the current comprehensive plan. You can also check it out, just planhillsborough.org. And if you go to the plan section, it's right under there, the comprehensive plan. Yes, thank you, Andrea. Also, does Hillsborough have brownfields? That's an excellent question. I'll let our Plan Hillsborough team weigh in on that one.
I
I'll
honestly don't
take
have
a
a lot of
stab at that.
details.
Yes,
Diego?
yeah, we do have some brownfields within the county. Is there anything specific to that question? They are identified, they are part of the brownfields program, and they are being addressed and mitigated.
And Diego, is there a way, if someone's looking for more information on those brownfields, do we have that on our website anywhere, or can we get that?
We don't have it on our website.
Okay.
Brownfield is it's a state program, along with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and the EPA. The FDEP does have a database on their website, and I'll put it on the chat with a
Thank
listing of
you.
all the brownfields within the state.
Great. So Diego, would that mean, since they're with those, that it wouldn't be considered in our count of the vacant land, of the developable and
I
redevelopable land?
am not sure on that question. I can
Okay.
get back to you on that though.
Excellent. We'll definitely make a note of that and we can get back to you. Incorporating more shelters. Excellent, excellent idea. Looking at Bonnet Park in Lakeland and their transition with their brownfields. Excellent point, Barbara. Thank you. Oh, and Andrea is good. She's very quick. She's got that brownfield areas and sites up. Wonderful. And the brownfields program. Thank you so much for adding that to the chat. All right. Okay, any other questions or ideas that you'd like to share? Excellent. Well, again, this will be available at planhillsborough.com/HC land use. You'll be able to see this presentation along with our slides. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact us at any time. Andrea put their contact information in the chat. She's good. She's on it this afternoon. Awesome.
She's quicker than me tonight.
She's so quick. So thank you so much. We will be stick around for just a second after the meeting if you do have any one-on-one questions you'd like to ask. Other than that, we thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and have a wonderful evening. Thanks so much. All right, thank you. Bye, everyone.